Hey everyone, greetings from the garage again. Here to talk about my final project on virtual reality as a modern day communications technology. Just kind of go over a few of the interesting resources that I found um, and touch upon my outline, what I've got going so far, my YouTube playlist, and just some things that I'm generally excited about. It's a pretty in-depth topic, and I have a lot of resources or references, but I haven't translated those onto my final product as of yet. But in the coming weeks, obviously it should be there. Over here, you'll see, my outline that I created. Basically, pretty standard outline. My description of VR, who the developers are, modern application uses, video games, educational use, corporate use, government use, then how VR is used in corporations, what some of the impacts and positives, challenges, and some current examples are. And I also want to dive into the social and ethical impacts of VR in the corporate world, but also take a look at the future outlook and what the outlook of VR looks like in general as a communication technology. I mean, really, the future outlook is kind of what we're doing right now, but it's just going to get even more. So when I go into some of my resources that I found for, say, corporate training, examples of VR already being used and how in corporate training VR can be of a benefit, and you'll see that benefits of VR in corporate training have a higher engagement rate, higher retention rate, experiential learning, reducing training and travel expenses, and safer for high-risk situations. I mean, these are all fantastic benefits to any corporate entity. Those who are looking to for the safety of their employees, for reducing costs and expenses, for having a higher return on investment. I mean, this totally takes the cost of virtual reality and makes it not even a consideration when considering the benefits which are achieved. Improves your business and soft skills. I think I mentioned on our Zoom broadcast the other day about how my wife's company is using it to train them in client customer relation type situations, so to improve their soft skills, so to speak. So that's an obvious benefit. And here's this guy training Walmart employee on VR. So another example of training them on customer service and how Walmart can improve their customer relationships through VR. Now that's just example of corporate training. I know Michael brought it up in our Zoom and felt like I wanted to touch upon it here. Another interesting things about VR and also augmented reality, but I'm not going to go into that on my presentation, is the ethical and social challenges that come about. I mean, there's we live in a regular world where there's rules, but in VR, is there really rules? So there needs to be all rules which need to be generated for a new form of technology and kind of like a new world. So this touches upon it briefly, in some of the things that could go on, such as harassment in VR. Is that actually, if you harass somebody in a VR environment, does that translate to real world and being punished that way? Kind of like sexual harassment, right? Sexual harassment between employees. If that happens outside of the workplace, you're still punished as employees of the workplace. So could VR kind of be in those type of boundaries? Student data, privacy, and consent is another thing. Accessibility issues. How are accessibility and people who need assistive technologies going to be affected by VR, and is VR not going to be accessible by those with certain disabilities or disadvantages? And does it also create a new digital divide? I know we talked a lot about digital divide briefly in the Zoom session. People are touching upon that in their projects, but is it going to create a cost barrier for getting into VR? I mean, I know I want to get VR for my kids, but man, it's a little expensive to get into it unless you get Google Cardboard for $15. But yeah, so it could be another thing that separates the who has what and the who has not. So we're going to see what it's all about. And then also VR ethical challenges and dangers from technology and society org, pretty reputable site here. Talking about the psychological and social impacts, ethics in the design. Here you go. Traditional moral responsibilities in the physical world do not necessarily translate to virtual worlds created by designers. So it kind of touches upon my concerns from before. And it goes into the benefits and applications of VR, what further needs for investigation. Pretty in-depth site here. Over trusting VR. Is it possible for VR systems to be hacked without the user knowing? Another thing that was seen in the Ready Player One movie. It's amazing how real that movie might actually be. Then they got a nice little infographic here. Also Ready Player One. Infographic for what is virtual reality. Kind of goes into some of the companies who are finding success with it. Like if you see here, Thomas Cook, he offered a VR flyovers in the Manhattan skyline. That resulted in a 40% return on investment and a 190% increase in New York City excursions. I mean, all of us, I'm sure, have been to New York City at some point in our life. It's amazing to see it in person. I don't know if I can be amazed by seeing it in VR, but there are some people who will never get to New York City. So VR is a tremendous way to kind of experience it. I'm guessing for those of us who have experienced VR, it's going to really feel like you're there. Some statistics of VR, and VR can account for $30 billion in revenue in 2020. I mean, that's a crazy number. And the total number of active virtual reality users is expected to reach 171 million by 2018. That's huge. I mean, by 2018. I mean, I don't know if we have 171 million right now. I guess maybe. And it goes into the brands and how many things are shipping. Obviously, it's all going up. It's just infographics that contain lots of information. And then I'm working on generating my YouTube playlist that we talked about this week. I'm going to try and incorporate some of the videos that are in here. I'm not going to try and bombard you with tons of videos in my presentation, but I think some of these will help. And what I'm working on building is my Google site. So I basically have my home page set up, and I have all my main section pages and my sub pages set up. And right now I'm just trying to work on bringing some of my layout over, and then taking what I've researched and translating it into what kind of fits best on my Google site. So this is kind of where I'm at right now. I'm hoping to get a lot more on this during the course of the week. But as you can see, I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to have a lot of information that a lot of people can find useful, both in education, corporate world, also personal life. So look forward to when it's finished and showing all of you. All right, thanks. Take care. Bye.